Okay, this is Professor Chuck Conkle. This is an introduction to Internet of Things. Uh, this podcast, we're going to go over just introduction, what we're going to be going over the next 4 weeks. And also, second podcast will be how to set up your photon device to get ready. So again, let's go and get started. This is a website for Internet of Things, RVCIOT.app. The idea sprouted a few years ago, actually, when um, I bought a Ring device for our home and wanted to customize some of the settings in the app. And so uh, I found many of resources out there during that time. And that was about 8 years ago. And the resources are even greater now. And the demand for skilled IoT workers is even greater, as you can imagine. So everything's driven with Internet of Things, from our vehicles to our homes to our workplaces to banking. And so I'm pretty excited about being able to offer the course. It's a lot of fun. And if you like to tinker and you like to create things, I think you're going to enjoy it. You should have already received in your home, or you will be receiving in your home, all the parts needed. I'm going to go over a few of those on this podcast. So let's go and get started. So I'm not going to read everything that's on this page here, but I will highlight some of the things. The first mention of IoT enabled devices actually was in the 70s. The first ATM was created. And Morgan Stanley estimates that by this year, 75 billion IoT devices will be in the world, which means 7 devices per individual. GE is also investing 60 trillion over the span of the next 15 years. And smart homes are not just a thing of the past or the future, they're actually here now. Another interesting fact is, and you probably know this, that people are adopting things like the Nest thermometer at home, or not, thermostat at home, Philips lighting, and a company named Zion, who does a lot of research results. The smart home automation market could grow in a staggering 53 billion by the end of 2022. And then internet connected smart cars, automated driving, it's already occurring with Tesla and things of that nature. Gartner says by 2020, 250 million vehicles will be connected to the internet for improved vehicle services and automation. So, what is the Internet of Things? So, the Internet of Things basically refers to billions of different parts, different pieces, different components, all working together over the backbone of the internet. And anything that's connected or can be connected to the internet, being either physically uh, manipulated or data driven from, can be considered Internet of Things. Example of Internet of Things would be like a light bulb, a smart thermostat, IoT device in a child's toy, or Sirius is a driverless truck and a truck driver like Tesla's put together. Or as complicated as jet engines now filled with thousands of sensors and transmitting data. And larger scale, smart cities projects are filling entire regions with sensors. There's even cameras out today that can determine threat escalation for facial recognition. and dispatch security, police to the location before something happens. The term IoT mainly is used for generally expecting, you would generally expect everything to be connected to the internet. PC isn't generally considered an IoT device. Smartphone isn't either, but both of them are actually an IoT device. Already went over some of the history, so I'll let you read all the history part. But it is pretty interesting, the ramping up of IoT. Some required parts needed for IoT. I do want to go over that. Particle photon, micro USB, and I'm going to go over these one by one while I try to point some of these out that I have on the table here. Okay, here's a particle photon right here. And this is a Wi-Fi particle photon. There is cellular. This one connects to Wi-Fi, home Wi-Fi, shared Wi-Fi from a phone. There's a power port right there. And then each one of these pins, try to turn it around, each one of these pins also communicate to the brains of the photon, which is right here. And that's what allows you to connect sensors and communicate through the photon. The next is a USB cord that you should have or will be getting if you don't have. Here's an example of one. These are really nice. These are 6-foot cords, really heavy duty micro USBs. Whole bunch of wires. You see some on the table here. Some will be male and female wires, male to male, female to female connections. Plastic cases like this. And I'll show you some of the finished ones here that we've got that we've created in the past semesters. Here is the one we'll be doing week 1, which is the motion sensor right here, the photon, power supply, and 3 wires connected to the breadboard that we'll talk about in a second to the sensor. Another one we'll be creating is the light sensor. This, I'll open up the case so you can see it. This one, light sensor is actually right here. This little device right there is a light sensor. And then you got the photon, power supply. And we've got some lights here that light up when the sensor's connected. And these little things here are resistors. And then here's the power supply. And last one I'll show you before we continue on is the LED driven display that's connected to a photon to the LED display and remotely with an app called Blink that we'll talk about. You can send messages to this device remotely, or you can show the time and temp or the temperature and weather. So I'm going to make the video here a little bit bigger to where you can see it a little bit more readily here. Give me a second. Okay, then breadboard. Here's a breadboard. You'll solderless breadboard is one of the components we'll be using, and the solderless breadboard will be actually there's a sticker on the bottom of the breadboard. When you open it, you're able to stick it on the bottom of that case, which fits nicely for IoT projects. Then we'll have like multiple LEDs. You saw one in one of the examples I just showed you. I'll give you a case of LEDs I have over here, just showing a different assortment of some of the LEDs you'll be receiving. So here's some LEDs, all different colors. You got blue, yellow, red, green, white. Resistors. Here's a resistor here on the table. Be using those to connect some of your projects. Then we've got a motion sensor, which is this one right here. The way the motion sensor connects is that it's got 3 pins, as you can see right here. There's a ground pin, a power pin, and what's called an out pin. We'll be doing that in the first project. Then the photon sensor, somewhere here. The photo sensor is what it's called, not photon. Try to get that in the camera. It's very small. Hard to stay in focus there. There we go. Might be a better look. Best look anyway, I'll give you. So again, that is the photon sensor. Light hits the photon sensor, and then will fire on the photon device, the photo sensor, fire on the photon device when it occurs. What I mean by fire, it will put a mechanism in place for notification. Then we've got the DHT11 sensor. This is the temperature humidity sensor. And then the LED module is in this little package here. And all these I'm showing you, I'd recommend you keeping them in the packages that they're in until you actually use them. You want to touch them as least as possible. Okay. And so that's all the parts we'll be using. There's also a link here to Amazon, all the parts that I've ordered that you can reorder if you want more. Like you might want to reorder more photons to do, because the way I've designed the course is you're going to recreate or reuse this photon each and every week. You'll reuse the plastic case and the breadboard each and every week. So some students might want to order a separate breadboard and separate plastic case and separate photon for each week. But you don't have to do that. You can survive, and I've taught this a number of years, with this using the same photon, same plastic case, and one breadboard for all 4 projects. Okay? So you do not have, but I put in there the cost, and I'd also link to it. Like the photon is $19. The plastic cases for 6 of them is $12, around $12. And then the breadboards are $7.99 for, I think you get 4 of them for $7.99. So pretty reasonable. We'll go over these in the following podcast coming up, all the different projects. But the projects we'll be going over is motion sensor with particle photon. It'll be using the particle photon, the motion sensor I showed you, and it'll be using 3. It'll be orange, yellow, and black, not orange, yellow, and red, which actually will be yellow, red, and black. So orange won't be in there. Light sensor, again, particle photon. Your light sensor here. I'll point to on table, that one right there. And I'm sorry, photon DHT11 temperature sensor is the third one. Also, wires are three male and female wires on that one. Then the last project is the particle photon, the LED module, and more wires. The next about facts about IoT. This is actually from the website. I won't reread this, but it's a good read for you to definitely go over. And then this video, I would recommend watching the video as well. It's just about 5 minutes on everything you need to know about IoT from a guy that's been in the field for a number of years with IoT. We're going to go right into next podcast, the lab software and setup, particle, and lab software and Wi-Fi. So that's the end of this podcast. So look forward to a great 4 weeks and look for podcast 2.